All right, gamers, it is the end of our July season in Marvel Snap, and we had 8 different cards released. We've got our month in review talking through where a number of these cards have ended up at. Today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on where they fit in, their power level, and why you should or shouldn't consider picking them up, depending on what decks you are interested in playing. Let's start with our current season pass card, soon to be free to play, available when the season rolls over, and that is Mr. Fantastic. I think he's probably one of, if not the best card to release this season. He's had an incredibly high play rate. I think he absolutely goes into the solid category at an absolute minimum. I think you could make a compelling argument that he is our singular must-buy card this season if you're someone that just wants to consistently have things that are powerful in your collection. I think I err on the side of putting him into solid over must-buy. For me personally, in order for a card to be a must-buy, it needs to not only be powerful, it also needs to be offering something that is heavily synergy based, meaning it can't be replaceable inside of the decks that it's played in. And while Pedro has a really good rate, he's just that. Like, he's providing some efficiency. He's not like, you know, a Deadpool or a Dakin or some key archetype enabler. If you have a deck list that has Mr. Fantastic in it, you can cut him for a different playable 2, and that deck will be weaker almost assuredly, but it's not going to be non-functional. He's a card that adds power. He's not a card that defines a deck and has a deck built around him, generally speaking. The one small exception to this is the Invisible Woman deck and Fantasticar deck explicitly rewards him for having some end of turn synergy, but even Invisible Woman isn't really doubling him up, right? Like, he sees play in the Invisible Woman deck, but her activate doesn't actually work with him. And I think she is a card here that definitely goes in the solid category. She's kind of the opposite of Pedro, where she's a card that's very good and you build around her. She's a card that you can't play the Invisible Woman deck without Invisible Woman, but at the same time, that deck isn't really omnipresent, and I don't think it's going to be overbearing. As I'm recording this video, we're actually just laughing about some clickbait surrounding Invisible Woman First Steps because she's created a new playable archetype. The end of turn deck is definitely playable, but I doubt it's over the top, can't be beaten. And even if that was the case, we can trust Second Dinner is going to pull it back down in an OTA appropriately. I expect that it's going to stay a solid, reasonable deck for the foreseeable future, though. One thing that I think is interesting as we've seen develop here is at the start of the season, I think I would have told you that I expected Fantasticar and Invisible Woman to be involved in the same decks. And while we are seeing some of them played together, you actually don't need Fantasticar to play with her. We're seeing Invisible Woman decks pop up that are playing Moon Girl to copy her or Prodigy to duplicate her effect. And the Fantasticar builds look a little bit different. We've had plenty of competitive Fantasticar decks this season, but I think you can play these cards together, but you could also play them separately, which is nice. And Fantasticar is in a similar boat to Mr. Fantastic here, where this is going to be free to play, available when the season rolls over here soon. Honestly, as I'm going through the list thinking about the Fantastic Four, I think they kind of nailed the power level of a lot of the cards this season. Johnny Fantastic here, or whatever we want to call him, the Human Torch. I think he's just another card that I would say is solid. He's definitely found a home inside of Inside of the Silver Surfer decks is another 3 energy card that doubles up. One of the big upsides Human Torch has, as opposed to something like Dakin, for example, is that he's resilient to Shang-Chi, since if you wait till the last turn of the game to double him up, he's never in Shang-Chi range. He's also a touch more resilient to Shadow King, because even if they Shadow King him, if you double him on the last turn, he's still going to be going up to 6, which is nice, as opposed to Shaw, who ends at like 0. Now, then we get to the thing. You know, it's funny. I've talked about in Pokemon Pocket how it's really sad that they keep making repeats of characters. And then multiple of those characters are bad. And the Thing's just an example of that in Marvel Snap, right? Like, the first Thing is really not good, and the Thing First Steps is also really mediocre. This is just one of those designs that's like very similar to Spider-Man 2099, where like I look at all the hoops the Thing has to jump through in order to blow up one card at random that's often going to be a really small number, and you're like, how does this card in Shang-Chi exist in the same game? And that's not to say that even they should make Shang-Chi worse, so much as it's like all these other cards that blow things up should probably be significantly better so they can be comparable to the headlining card that blows stuff up. Like, having to fill your lane to trigger his effect is not trivial in decks. It's a real deck building cost, and him destroying at random, often blowing up little things, is also super mediocre. All right, Herby. Where does the support bot go? I feel like Herby's design, and actually before we get to Herby, this card could honestly be here. I'm thinking about where I want to put Herby, and I think I want to put Herby in Needs and OTA, and I don't think the Thing and Herby belong in the same tier. The Thing could be made playable by making his numbers better, but I think that would be a boring way to make him playable. I think the Thing probably needs a new text box. He needs to not blow up at random. He needs some amount of control to blow up things consistently so he can be predictable and you can know what you're getting when you work for his payoff. Herby, on the other side, I think Herby as a design is really sweet, and I think a year ago in Marvel Snap, Herby would have been an incredibly powerful card. However, we're not a year ago in Marvel Snap anymore. We're in a world where your 2 energy cards are Surge and Mr. Fantastic and Merlin, and all of those mean that the power level of the 2 you need to play on 2 is much higher. And like, you look at the decks where you're like, maybe I want Herby here, and those decks probably also want one of those other 2s, and those other 2s are better to play early, and Herby gets worse the later you play him out in the game because you need to cycle through his activate effects. Herby as a 2/4 might be good enough. Herby as a 1/2 would absolutely be good enough. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a point buff, because then he could be a 2/8 periodically. I don't even know if 2/4 is necessarily. It's obviously better than 2/3, but I think you could make this card super playable, reasonable, even fun and exciting just by changing its numbers. So that's what the OTA category versus needs redesign. Needs redesign is this card needs a text box change. OTA is the design here is good. The numbers here could change slightly and the card becomes very reasonable. Mad Thinker. This is one of our cards from the limited time event. And I think this card ends up somewhere between these 2 categories. We don't have a lot of data on this card right now. I haven't played with it at all personally, so I would put it a little bit of an asterisk next to the ranking here. In concept, if you trigger this twice, it's a 1/5, which is on rate, or above rate even, but it has a real deck building requirement to get to that 1/5. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see this gain like a base point of power in the long term, because usually these ones that are synergy based need a little bit more of a push. And simply playing a one energy card where the only payoff it has is making a bigger number is a liability in a game where Shang-Chi where Killmonger exists. Like having to work to get a payoff that then gets blown away by a common tech card is generally speaking not good. Moleman. So Moleman actually was so terrible for his first little bit that he was out. He was actually OTA'd already. So that Moleman says 3-4. He was originally a 3-3. And I would wager this card probably needs another OTA. I wouldn't be surprised if this card is doomed to Fastos, where like it's gonna get an extra point and then it's still just never gonna matter and they're just gonna leave it forever. But I don't. It's hard to find a compelling reason to play Moleman when I can play Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop has a very similar effect. She doesn't have this element of deck building requirement of needing more expensive cards. And he costs 3. And the difference between a 3 energy card and a 2 energy card is massive. Like the bar for 2 drops has gone up in recent memory this year, but the bar for 3s is really high, and I don't think Moleman meets it currently. I think its design is good. I think it's interesting. It doesn't need to change. As someone who enjoys Victoria hand decks, I want to work on Moleman decks still and poke around at him a little bit. But I think this card could probably stand to be a 2. I think honestly, as we wind down here for this summary, I feel like Second Dinner batted pretty well this season. I think any season where half or more of the cards end up in these top 2 rows is a pretty successful season overall. We got functionally at a minimum 4 new game pieces to do things with, and we got a good spread, right? Like Mr. Fantastic splashes into a bunch of existing decks. Fantasticar and Invisible Woman are cards that created a new deck basically, and then the Human Torch splashes into some existing decks as well while also working with some new ones. So yeah, if you're interested in spending your resources on cards from this month, this is where I would about throw them at. Hopefully this was useful to you. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, this was helpful, make sure you smash the like button, leave a comment down below. I know you might hit you agree or disagree with. If you happen to be new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Show us other Marvel Snap roundups and deck list things like this one in the future. Appreciate everybody that watched all the way through to the end. I hope your next snap pack is an excellent one.